Antarctica holds the largest single mass of ice on Earth. Imagine a continent roughly the size of the United States and Mexico combined, completely draped in a frozen blanket. This ice sheet is so heavy that it actually depresses the bedrock of the continent, pushing it down into the Earth's mantle. In some places, the ice is incredibly thick, reaching depths of nearly 3 miles, or about 4.8 kilometers. It contains about 70% of the planet's fresh water, locked away in silence for millions of years. If you were to stand in the center, you would be standing on layers of snow that fell long before human civilization began, compressed by the sheer weight of time itself. It is a reservoir of history, a silent library of water and cold that watches over the southern world, keeping the planet's rhythms steady and slow. Some parts of Antarctica have not seen rain or snow for 2 million years. While we often imagine the continent as a world of eternal white snow, there are regions known as the dry valleys that are stark, bare, and rocky. These valleys are swept by fierce winds that strip away any moisture, leaving the ground exposed and brown against the surrounding glaciers. It is one of the most extreme deserts on our planet, so similar to the surface of Mars that scientists use it to study what life might look like on other worlds. The air here is incredibly dry, preserving the landscape in a state of suspended animation where time seems to move slower than anywhere else. Without the softening cover of snow, the geological bones of the Earth are revealed in all their raw and ancient glory. In this quiet corner of the world, the land waits in eternal patience, a perfect stillness of rock and wind that has forgotten the touch of water. If you enjoy these quiet explorations, consider subscribing so you can easily return here whenever you need to rest. A fire burns continuously within the ice at the bottom of the world. Mount Erebus is the southernmost active volcano on Earth, a towering giant that defies the freezing temperatures surrounding it. Rising to a height of about 12,448 feet, or 3,794 meters, this mountain holds a rare and mesmerizing feature, a permanent lava lake that has been bubbling since at least the early 1970s. While the rest of the continent sleeps under deep frost, Erebus breathes steam and heat into the polar sky, creating intricate ice towers called fumaroles around its vents. These chimneys of ice are sculpted by the escaping warmth, standing like silent sentinels on the volcano's flanks. It is a place of profound contrast, where the intense heat of the Earth's core meets the chilling winds of the polar vortex. The mountain stands as a testament to the enduring energy within our planet, a warm heartbeat pulsing quietly beneath the cold, white silence of the south. Beneath the crushing weight of the ice sheet lie vast, hidden lakes of liquid water. We tend to think of the surface when we picture Antarctica, but deep below, shielded from the sun and the wind, is a hidden network of over 400 subglacial lakes. The largest of these is Lake Vostok, which is roughly the size of Lake Ontario, buried beneath about 2.5 miles, or 4 kilometers, of solid ice. The immense pressure from the ice above lowers the freezing point of the water, allowing it to remain liquid in total darkness. This water has been isolated from the rest of the world for perhaps 15 million years, creating a time capsule of ancient chemistry and mystery. It is a secret world where the water is still and silent, untouched by the storms that rage miles above in the open air. In that eternal dark, the lake sleeps peacefully, a hidden jewel guarded by the ice, holding the memories of a younger Earth in its cold embrace. The white expanse of Antarctica is the best place on Earth to find rocks that have fallen from the stars. When meteorites strike the planet, They can fall anywhere, but in most places, they are lost in forests, oceans, or fields, where they blend in with earthly stones. In Antarctica, the dark rocks stand out clearly against the pristine white canvas of the snow and ice. Furthermore, the flow of the glaciers acts like a slow-moving conveyor belt, carrying these space rocks toward mountain ranges where the ice wears away and leaves the meteorites gathered in groups. Scientists have found tens of thousands of these celestial visitors here, including rocks that originated from the Moon and Mars. They sit on the surface, preserved by the dry cold, waiting to tell their stories of the early solar system. Each stone is a silent traveler from the void, resting now in the quietest place on Earth, bridging the vast distance between our snowy ground and the infinite cosmos. The winds of Antarctica obey the pull of gravity as much as the weather. Unlike the breezes we feel in temperate zones, which are driven by complex weather fronts, the winds here are often born from the sheer shape of the continent. This phenomenon creates what are known as katabatic winds, where dense, cold air builds up on the high central plateau and then spills down the slopes toward the coast. As the air rushes downhill, it can reach speeds of over 100 miles per hour, or roughly 160 kilometers per hour. Yet, despite their speed, there is a consistent rhythm to them, a flow of heavy air returning to the sea. It is the atmosphere itself cascading like a river, following the contours of the land in a powerful, invisible torrent. These winds are the breath of the continent, exhaling the cold from the high interior out to the ocean, a ceaseless cycle of movement in a land of stillness. Antarctica is encircled by the strongest and largest ocean current on the planet. While most continents are connected by land bridges or shallow seas, Antarctica is lonely, surrounded entirely by the churning waters of the Southern Ocean. This creates the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, a massive flow of water that moves endlessly from west to east, effectively isolating the continent from warmer northern waters. It transports roughly 130 million cubic meters of water per second, which is more than 100 times the flow of all the world's rivers combined. This barrier of water is what keeps Antarctica frozen, locking the cold in and keeping the heat out. It is a protective ring, a liquid wall that has swirled continuously for millions of years. The current dances a perpetual circle around the ice, a guardian of the cold that ensures the solitude and preservation of this majestic southern realm. A glacier in East Antarctica appears to bleed a striking red liquid onto the ice. In the remote Taylor Valley, a stark contrast breaks the white and grey landscape, where a waterfall of crimson flows slowly from the tongue of the Taylor Glacier. For a long time, explorers believed this color came from algae, but we now know it is the result of ancient iron-rich saltwater. This water comes from a subglacial pool that has been trapped beneath the glacier for over 1 million years. As the iron-rich brine finally reaches the surface and meets the air, the iron oxidizes, essentially rusting, and turns a deep red hue. It is a rare glimpse into the chemistry occurring deep beneath the ice, where microbes survive in salty darkness without sunlight or oxygen. It serves as a vivid reminder that even in the most frozen stillness, the Earth is active and changing, painting the ice with the colors of its hidden depths. Despite the common pairing in cartoons, the largest land predator of the Arctic never walks the Antarctic ice. The North and South Poles are often thought of as twins, but they are worlds apart, separated by the vast tropical warmth of the equator. Polar bears evolved in the Arctic, in the far north, and have never migrated across the warm center of the Earth to reach the south. Instead, Antarctica is a sanctuary for penguins, seals, and birds that do not have to fear a large land-based hunter. The top predators here patrol the ocean, not the ice, leaving the snowy surface relatively peaceful for the creatures that nest there. This isolation has allowed a unique ecosystem to flourish, one where flightless birds can waddle safely to the water's edge without constantly scanning the horizon for a bear's white coat. The continent remains a kingdom apart, a distinct chapter in nature's story where the rules of the North do not apply, and the ice belongs to different guardians. A colossal range of mountains divides the continent into two distinct regions. We often think of Antarctica as a flat sheet of ice, but buried within that ice and protruding through it is one of the longest mountain chains on Earth. The Transantarctic Mountains stretch for about 2,200 miles, or 3,500 kilometers, separating the rocky hills of East Antarctica from the lower lands of West Antarctica. Many of these peaks rise to over 14,000 feet, or 4,200 meters, standing as dark, jagged teeth against the blinding white sky. They are old mountains, their roots deep in the crust, and they act as a dam, holding back the massive East Antarctic ice sheet from spilling rapidly into the west. In the deep silence, these stone giants hold their line, witnessing the slow passage of eons. They are the spine of the continent, an ancient backbone of rock that lends structure and grandeur to the endless, sweeping plains of snow. Antarctica effectively doubles in size every winter as the ocean freezes. The continent itself is land, but it is surrounded by the Southern Ocean, which reacts dramatically to the arrival of the long polar night. As temperatures plummet, the sea surface begins to solidify, creating a vast apron of sea ice that extends outward from the coast. This sea ice can cover an area of about 7 million square miles, or 18 million square kilometers, which is larger than the continent itself. It is one of the biggest seasonal events on the planet, a rhythmic expansion that happens every single year. When summer returns, much of this ice melts and breaks away, returning the water to the ocean. It is a slow, breathing motion of the planet, expanding and contracting with the rhythm of the sun. This ebb and flow is the heartbeat of the South, a gentle reminder that the boundaries between land and sea are fluid, shifting softly with the turning of the seasons. The sheer volume of frozen water stored here is difficult for the human mind to fully comprehend. When we look at a globe, the white patch at the bottom looks significant, but maps often distort the true scale of what sits there. Antarctica holds approximately 90% of all the ice on Earth. To put that into perspective, if all this ice were to melt, global sea levels would rise by about 200 feet, or 60 meters. This ice sheet is the result of snow falling, settling, and compressing over millions of years, creating a record of the past atmosphere layer by layer. It is a stabilizing weight for the entire planet, a massive thermal anchor that helps regulate the climate of the world far beyond the southern horizon. The ice sits in majestic stillness, a heavy white guardian that balances the oceans and keeps the world familiar, holding the waters in check with its frozen embrace. The sky above Antarctica was the first to reveal a fragile gap in our planet's protective shield. High in the atmosphere, a layer of ozone gas protects living things from the sun's ultraviolet radiation. But in the 1980s, scientists noticed something alarming. During the Antarctic spring, a thinning of this layer, often called a hole, forms over the continent due to specific chemical reactions that occur in the extreme cold. The unique weather patterns of the South Pole trap chemicals that eat away at the ozone when the sunlight returns after the long winter darkness. While this sounds concerning, the discovery led to global cooperation, and the whole is now slowly healing. It is a place where the atmosphere is particularly sensitive, reacting visibly to the changes in our industrial world. The southern sky serves as a mirror for humanity, a silent canvas that reflects our impact and eventually our ability to heal the delicate balance of the air above. The emperor penguin is the only penguin that breeds on the open Antarctic sea ice during the harsh winter. When the sun sets for months and the winds begin to howl, almost all other wildlife migrates north to warmer waters or subantarctic islands. The emperors, however, march inland to their breeding grounds, braving temperatures that can drop to -76 degrees Fahrenheit or -60 degrees Celsius. They huddle together in massive groups, rotating slowly so that every bird gets a turn in the warm center and a turn on the cold outer edge. The males stand still for weeks, balancing delicate eggs on their feet, covering them with a warm brood pouch. It is a display of profound endurance and cooperation, surviving the darkest days of the year through shared warmth. They are the kings of the winter, living statues of patience and devotion standing firm against the storms, waiting for the return of the sun and new life. Antarctica is the only continent on Earth with no indigenous human history. Every other major landmass has been home to people for thousands of years, with cultures and languages shaped by the land. But Antarctica remained hidden from human eyes until barely 2 centuries ago. No ancient ruins lie beneath the snow. No folklore explains the shape of the mountains. It was a place too remote and too hostile for early migration, protected by the stormy Southern Ocean. Today, people live there only as temporary visitors, scientists and support staff who stay for a season or a year before returning home. It is a land that belongs to no one and everyone, governed by international treaties rather than kings or presidents. It remains a place of pure nature, a silent continent where the only history written in the ice is that of the wind, the snow, and the slow march of time. The first human to stand at the South Pole was a Norwegian explorer who moved with the wisdom of the North. In the early 20th century, a race began to reach the bottom of the world, a contest of endurance and navigation between empires. Roald Amundsen succeeded in reaching the pole on December 14, 1911, by respecting the harsh realities of the polar environment. He used sled dogs and wore furs, adopting the techniques of Arctic indigenous peoples, while his rivals struggled with ponies and motorized sleds that failed in the cold. His journey was efficient and quiet, a masterclass in preparation that allowed him to glide over the plateau. When he arrived, he planted a flag in the endless white plain, marking a singular point where all lines of longitude meet. His footsteps are long gone, buried under a century of snow, but his legacy remains as a testament to moving in harmony with the frozen world rather than fighting against it. Deep beneath the ice, fossils reveal that Antarctica was once a lush green paradise. It is hard to imagine this frozen desert as anything other than white, but the continent has drifted across the globe over millions of years. About 90 million years ago, during the Cretaceous period, Antarctica was located farther north, and the world was much warmer. Scientists have found fossilized roots, pollen, and spores that show this land was covered in temperate rainforests, similar to those in New Zealand today. Dinosaurs roamed through swamps and forests where ice sheets now sit miles thick. The rocks tell a story of a time when the polar nights were not freezing, but simply dark and cool, teeming with life. The ice preserves these memories of a greener past, a hidden chapter of warmth locked away in the cold stone, dreaming of the days when leaves rustled in the southern breeze. The rhythm of day and night in Antarctica moves on a yearly cycle rather than a daily one. In most places on Earth, the sun rises and sets every 24 hours, marking the passage of time with light and shadow. At the South Pole, however, the sun rises once in September and does not set until March. For 6 months, the sun circles the sky parallel to the horizon, bathing the ice in a perpetual low-hanging light. Then it dips below the horizon, ushering in 6 months of twilight and darkness. This creates a unique sense of time, where a single day lasts for an entire year. The transition is a long, slow sunset that stretches for weeks, painting the sky in spectacular violets and oranges. It is a celestial dance of grand proportions, where time is measured not by the clock, but by the slow, majestic spiraling of the sun and the stars. Antarctica contains some of the most acoustically quiet places on the surface of the planet. In our modern world, we are surrounded by the hum of traffic, electricity, and nature, a constant background of sound. But in the deep interior of Antarctica, far from the coast and the penguin colonies, there is a silence so profound it can be felt. Without trees to rustle, running water to bubble, or animals to call out, the only sound is the wind. And when the wind stops, the silence is absolute. This lack of vibration allows scientists to listen to the Earth itself. Seismometers here can detect earthquakes happening on the other side of the planet with incredible clarity. It is a stillness that resets the mind, a pure absence of noise. In this hush, the world feels paused, a sanctuary of silence where the mind can rest in the vast, white emptiness, undisturbed by the clamor of life. Massive floating platforms of ice surround the continent, acting as the gatekeepers of the glaciers. Where the ice sheet meets the ocean, it doesn't just stop, it flows out over the water, forming immense floating slabs known as ice shelves. The Ross Ice Shelf, the largest of these, is roughly the size of France. These shelves can be hundreds of feet thick, rising like white cliffs from the dark sea. They play a crucial role by slowing down the flow of the glaciers behind them, bracing the ice against the land. Every so often, the ocean claims a piece of the shelf, carving massive icebergs that drift away like islands. It is a zone of constant interaction between the frozen solid and the liquid sea, a boundary that is both strong and fragile. These floating giants are the continent's shores, extending a cold hand over the water, smoothing the transition from the solid earth to the restless, rolling ocean. An active volcano hides a secret harbor within its collapsed center. Deception Island is one of the few places where a ship can sail directly into the heart of a volcano, entering through a narrow gap in the caldera walls, known as Neptune's Bellows. The island is shaped like a horseshoe, protecting a large bay of water that is surprisingly heated by the geothermal activity below. While the air above remains freezing, pockets of the shoreline are warm enough that steam rises from the black volcanic sand, creating a ghostly mist that hangs over the beach. It is a place of elemental contradiction, where the heat of the earth battles the chill of the polar winds. In the past, sailors sought refuge here from the stormy seas, resting in the calm waters inside the crater. Today, the island remains a quiet testament to the fire that burns beneath the ice, a warm sanctuary sleeping in the midst of a frozen ocean. The southern sky often lights up with a silent, dancing display of color. Just as the North has the aurora borealis, Antarctica is crowned by the aurora australis, a celestial phenomenon caused by solar wind interacting with the Earth's magnetic field. Because the continent is so far from civilization and light pollution, the darkness of the polar winter provides a perfect canvas for these curtains of green, magenta, and violet light. They ripple across the stars in slow, majestic waves, moving to a rhythm that no human can hear. This light show occurs high in the atmosphere, sometimes over 60 miles, or about 100 kilometers above the ice. It is a reminder that our planet is constantly interacting with the sun, protected by invisible magnetic shields. Underneath this cosmic ballet, the white landscape reflects the soft glow, turning the endless ice into a shimmering mirror for the heavens, watching the silent performance of the night. An entire mountain range the size of the Alps lies completely buried beneath the ice. The Gambotsev Mountains are one of the great mysteries of modern geography, hidden under roughly 2,000 feet, or 600 meters, of solid ice in the eastern part of the continent. They were discovered not by explorers on foot, but by seismic equipment that saw through the frozen surface to the rock below. These jagged peaks and deep valleys have been protected from erosion for millions of years, encased in a tomb of ice that preserves their sharp, youthful shape. If the ice were stripped away, they would stand as tall and dramatic as the mountains of Europe. But instead, they remain a ghost range, unseen by human eyes. They are the secret skeleton of the continent, holding up the massive ice sheet from below. It is a hidden grandeur, a reminder that the most majestic sights are sometimes those that lie deepest, waiting quietly in the dark. Beneath the frozen surface of the sea, seals sing complex songs that sound like science fiction. The Weddell seal is a master of living in the fast ice, staying close to the continent throughout the winter by chewing breathing holes in the frozen crust. To communicate in the darkness of the water, they produce a series of trills, chirps, and whistles that can be heard by other seals miles away. These sounds are eerie and beautiful, resembling synthesizers or laser effects from a movie, bouncing clearly through the cold, dense water. Because they have no natural predators on the ice, these seals are remarkably calm and fearless, often resting peacefully near their air holes. Their songs are the soundtrack of the underwater polar world, a vibrant chorus of life echoing beneath the silent white floor. It is a hidden conversation in the deep, a melody of survival that rings out through the cold, dark ocean while the world above sleeps. Tiny bubbles trapped in the ice serve as a time machine for the Earth's atmosphere. When snow falls in Antarctica, it captures small pockets of air between the flakes, and as the snow compresses into ice, that air is locked away forever. Scientists drill long cylinders called ice cores, extracting columns of ice that go back hundreds of thousands of years. By analyzing the air inside these bubbles, they can taste the atmosphere of the Roman Empire, the last ice age, or times even more ancient. It is the planet's most accurate history book, written in layers of frozen water rather than ink. Each layer tells a story of volcanic eruptions, changing temperatures, and the composition of the ancient sky. The ice keeps these secrets safe, a pristine archive of every breath the world has taken, waiting patiently to share its wisdom about the long, slow cycles of our climate. The most famous story of this continent is one of survival and endurance, not conquest. In 1915, the explorer Ernest Shackleton and his crew watched their ship, the Endurance, become trapped and eventually crushed by the slow, relentless pressure of the pack ice. Yet, this disaster turned into a triumph of the human spirit, as Shackleton led his men across the frozen ocean and open seas to safety without losing a single life. They drifted on ice floes for months, living in a world that was constantly shifting and cracking beneath their feet. It is a tale that defines the Antarctic spirit, a respect for the overwhelming power of nature and the resilience required to withstand it. The story hangs over the continent like a legend, reminding us that in this vast, indifferent wilderness, success is not about conquering the peak, but about moving in harmony with the ice and caring for one another through the long, cold night. On clear, calm days, the air itself seems to sparkle with millions of tiny jewels. This phenomenon is known as diamond dust, and it occurs when the temperature is so low that moisture in the air freezes instantly into tiny ice crystals. Unlike snow, which falls from clouds, diamond dust forms near the ground under clear blue skies, creating a glittering fog that refracts the sunlight. As the crystals drift slowly through the air, they can create beautiful optical illusions, such as halos around the sun or bright spots known as sundogs. It is a weather condition of exquisite beauty, turning the atmosphere into a shimmering veil of light. Walking through it feels like walking through a cloud of glitter, where the air itself has turned to solid light. It is one of the many ways the cold transforms the mundane into the magical, dressing the barren landscape in a robe of sparkling frost. Antarctica is the only place on Earth dedicated entirely to peace and science. In 1959, nations from around the world came together to sign the Antarctic Treaty, a unique agreement that suspended territorial claims and banned all military activity on the continent. There are no cities, no borders, and no armies here. Instead, there are research stations where scientists from different countries work side by side. It is a reserve for nature and humanity, a place where the usual conflicts of the world are left at the shoreline. The treaty ensures that the ice remains a shared heritage, protected for the benefit of all. In a world often divided by lines on a map, Antarctica stands as a unified white space, a quiet promise that cooperation is possible. It is a continent set aside for learning, a sanctuary where the only battles fought are against the cold and the wind. The ice here is not always white. Sometimes it glows with a deep, mesmerizing blue. Glaciers are made of snow that has been compressed over thousands of years, squeezing out the air bubbles that normally make ice look white. When this dense, bubble-free ice is exposed to sunlight, it absorbs the red end of the light spectrum and reflects only the blue. This creates fields of blue ice that look like frozen sapphire, glowing from within with an ethereal light. These areas are often found near mountains where the wind has scoured away the top layers of snow, revealing the ancient, hard ice beneath. It is a color that feels almost unnatural in its intensity, a vivid jewel tone set against the grey rock and white snow. This blue is the color of time and pressure, a visual signal of the immense weight and age of the water that has rested here for eons. The largest flying bird in the world patrols the winds surrounding the ice. The wandering albatross has a wingspan that can reach nearly 12 feet, or about 3.7 meters, allowing it to glide for hours without flapping its wings. These birds are masters of the air, using the energy of the wind to travel thousands of miles across the Southern Ocean. They rarely touch land, spending most of their lives on the wing, soaring over the rough waves that circle Antarctica. To the early explorers, they were constant companions in the lonely seas, symbols of grace in a harsh environment. They drift effortlessly over the water, locking their wings in place and riding the air currents like a surfer rides a wave. They are the silent guardians of the crossing, ancient mariners of the sky that connect the frozen continent to the rest of the living world. There is a small body of water that refuses to freeze even in the deepest Antarctic winter. Don Juan Pond, located in the Wright Valley, is one of the saltiest bodies of water on Earth, with a salinity level of over 40%. This intense saltiness lowers the freezing point of the water so much that it remains liquid even when temperatures drop to minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 50 degrees Celsius. It is a shallow pool, only about 4 inches or 10 centimeters deep, looking like a dark mirror amidst the dry, rocky landscape. While other lakes are covered in thick lids of ice, this small pond lies open to the sky, defying the laws of the season. It is a chemical marvel, a stubborn pocket of liquid in a world of solid ice. The pond sits quietly in its valley, a rare and salty tear in the frozen face of the continent. The coldest temperature ever recorded on Earth was measured on the high Antarctic plateau. At the Russian research station Vostok, the thermometer once dropped to a staggering minus 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit, or minus 89.2 degrees Celsius. At these temperatures, the air is so cold that throwing a cup of boiling water into the air turns it instantly into snow before it hits the ground. It is a cold that commands absolute stillness, freezing moisture in the breath and crisping the very fabric of clothing. Yet this extreme environment is not chaotic. It is incredibly stable and calm, governed by the physics of heat loss in the clear, long night. It represents the lower limit of what life on our surface can experience, a boundary of nature. The plateau lies under this blanket of cold, a silent, white expanse where the heat of the sun feels like a distant memory, and the ice rules absolute. The entire ecosystem of the Southern Ocean rests on the back of a tiny, shrimp-like creature. Antarctic krill are small, translucent crustaceans that swarm in numbers so vast they can be seen from space as pink stains in the water. They feed on the algae that grow under the sea ice, converting the sun's energy into food for whales, seals, penguins, and fish. Without this single species, the vibrant life of the Antarctic would collapse. The biomass of krill is estimated to be hundreds of millions of tons, making them one of the most successful species on the planet. They are the engine of the South, a microscopic army that fuels the giants of the ocean. In the cold waters, they dance in massive clouds, a living soup of energy that sustains the circle of life in this remote part of the world. The largest permanent land animal in Antarctica is a wingless insect smaller than a fingernail. While penguins and seals come onto the land to breed, they feed in the ocean. The true resident of the continent is the Belgica antarctica, a tiny midge only about 0.2 inches or 6 millimeters long. It has evolved to survive the freezing conditions by having no wings, which prevents it from being blown away by the fierce winds. Its larvae can withstand being frozen solid for months, waking up when the ice melts in the brief summer. It lives in the moss and rocks of the Antarctic Peninsula, a humble survivor in a land of giants. This tiny creature is a testament to nature's adaptability, finding a way to endure in the harshest climate on Earth. It is the microscopic king of the land, ruling over the moss beds while the rest of the world focuses on the ice. The icebergs of Antarctica are different from the jagged spires found in the north. Here, the ice breaks off from the massive ice shelves in huge, flat slabs known as tabular icebergs These floating islands can be dozens of miles long, with perfectly flat tops and steep vertical sides rising high above the water. They look like massive tables or floating city blocks, pristine and geometric against the dark sea. Some are so large they are given names like A68 or B15, tracked by satellites as they drift slowly into the ocean. They carry their own weather systems and can persist for years, slowly melting as they journey north. They are the children of the continent, immense fragments of the ice sheet setting sail on a one-way voyage. Majestic and serene, they drift through the Southern Ocean like white aircraft carriers, carrying nothing but silence and cold. The freezing of Antarctic water helps drive the circulation of oceans around the entire globe. When sea ice forms in the winter, it expels salt into the water below, making that water incredibly salty and dense. This heavy water sinks to the bottom of the ocean and flows northward, pushing a global conveyor belt of currents that regulates the planet's climate. This process, known as the formation of Antarctic bottom water, ventilates the deep ocean, bringing oxygen to the abyss. It means that the cold at the bottom of the world is intimately connected to the tropical seas thousands of miles away. The slow heartbeat of the Antarctic winter pumps life and energy through the world's oceans. It is a silent, invisible engine, a sinking of water in the south that keeps the rest of the planet breathing and moving in a balanced rhythm. The wind sculpts the snow into hard, wave-like ridges, known as sastrugi. Because the snow in Antarctica is often dry and fine like sand, the constant wind packs it into irregular shapes that can be as hard as concrete. These ridges can be knee-high or even taller, stretching across the plains like a frozen, choppy sea. Traveling over them is difficult, as they create a bumpy, uneven surface that stretches to the horizon. They are the artwork of the gale, transient sculptures formed by the interaction of air and ice. The patterns align with the prevailing winds, acting as a natural compass for those who know how to read them. They give texture to the endless white, casting long, rhythmic shadows when the sun is low. Sastrugi are the frozen footprints of the wind, a record of the storms that have passed, carved into the skin of the continent. There is a point on the continent known as the Pole of Inaccessibility. This is the location that is mathematically the farthest in all directions from the coastline, the most remote spot in the most remote continent. It is far harder to reach than the geographic South Pole, located in the high, thin air of the interior plateau. In 1958, a Soviet expedition reached this desolate location and left a small bust of Lenin facing Moscow, which is now buried to its neck in snow. It is a place of profound isolation, where the silence is deep and heavy. To stand there is to be as far away from the ocean as one can be in the southern hemisphere. It is the heart of the solitude, a coordinate on a map that represents the extreme limit of human reach, a lonely pinprick in a vast expanse of white. Sometimes, the horizon itself seems to lift up and float in the sky. This optical illusion is called a fata morgana, a complex mirage often seen in the polar regions due to layers of cold and warm air bending the light. It can make distant icebergs look like towering castles, or make the coastline appear to hover in the air, distorted and stretched into fantastic shapes. Early explorers were often confused by these visions, charting islands and mountain ranges that did not actually exist. It is a trick of the atmosphere, a play of light that blurs the line between the earth and the sky. The air acts like a lens, projecting ghost images across the frozen plains. It adds a dreamlike quality to the landscape, where reality is fluid, and the eyes cannot always trust what they see in the shimmering distance. Life clings to the bare rocks in the form of colourful, crusty patches called lichens. While trees and shrubs cannot survive the interior cold, lichens are incredibly tough, capable of shutting down their metabolism during the harsh winter and waking up when a little moisture becomes available. They paint the grey rocks with splashes of orange, yellow, and green, growing incredibly slowly, sometimes only a fraction of an inch every century. Some of these colonies are thousands of years old, living quietly through the rise and fall of human civilizations. They are a partnership between a fungus and an algae, working together to survive where nothing else can. They are the painted sentinels of the mountains, adding a rare touch of life and color to the mineral world. In their stillness, they endure, a humble reminder that life is stubborn and will find a way to hold on even at the edge of the world. The largest shelf of ice sings a haunting melody that is too low for human ears to hear. As the winds whip across the massive expanse of the Ross Ice Shelf, they strike the snow dunes and cause the entire shelf to vibrate like a giant drum. Sensors buried in the snow have picked up this continuous mournful hum, which shifts in pitch depending on the temperature and the stability of the ice. It is a song of the elements, a sonic fingerprint of the shelf's health that plays endlessly in the background of the polar silence. To the scientists who listen, this vibration is the voice of the ice itself, telling the story of its structure and strength. It is a reminder that even in the stillness, the landscape is alive and reactive, singing a deep, resonant lullaby to the dark waters beneath it. A wooden cabin from the heroic age of exploration stands perfectly preserved on the coast. Built in 1911 by Captain Robert Falcon Scott and his men, the hut at Cape Evans remains almost exactly as they left it over a century ago. Inside, shelves are still stocked with tins of food, bottles of medicine, and boxes of biscuits, while the air carries the faint, lingering scent of seal blubber and old leather. The extreme cold acts as a natural museum curator, freezing the decay that would normally claim such a structure, stopping the clock in the early 20th century. Walking into this space is like stepping back in time, a ghostly encounter with the brave souls who once called this wooden shelter home. It stands as a silent memorial on the volcanic black sand, a fragile human warmth preserved forever against the backdrop of the eternal ice. The deep darkness of the Southern Ocean hides the heaviest invertebrate on Earth. The colossal squid is a creature of legend that actually exists, patrolling the icy depths surrounding the continent. These giants can weigh over 1,000 pounds, or about 450 kilograms, and possess eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, to see in the crushing blackness. Unlike the giant squid, which is long and thin, the colossal squid is stout and muscular, armed with swiveling hooks on its tentacles to catch prey. They are rarely seen by human eyes, known mostly from specimens found in the stomachs of sperm whales, their only natural predator. They are the true monsters of the deep, silent and powerful, drifting through the abyss like ghosts. In the freezing, ink-black water, they reign as the mysterious kings of a world we can barely imagine. A bird exists here that is so white it becomes invisible against the snow. The snow petrel is one of only 3 birds that breed exclusively in Antarctica, and its plumage is pure, stark white, with only its coal-black eyes and beak breaking the monochrome. These small, delicate birds nest in the crevices of inland cliffs, sometimes flying hundreds of miles or hundreds of kilometers to the ocean to find food. When they fly against the backdrop of the ice sheet, they vanish like spirits, reappearing only when they bank against the dark rock or the blue sea. They are symbols of purity and resilience, thriving in temperatures that would freeze other creatures in minutes. They are the angels of the pole, winged fragments of the ice itself that have taken flight, watching over the frozen silence with quiet grace. The summer sun sometimes turns the snow a blushing shade of pink. This phenomenon, often called watermelon snow, is caused by a specific type of microscopic algae that blooms when the weather warms slightly. The algae produce a red pigment to protect themselves from the intense ultraviolet radiation of the sun, acting as a natural sunscreen. When millions of these tiny organisms grow together, they paint the white glaciers with streaks of soft rose and red, and they can even give off a faint, sweet scent. While beautiful, this color attracts more heat than white snow, causing the ice to melt just a little faster. It is a fleeting splash of color in a black and white world, a biological signal that life is waking up. The snowdrifts blush with the warmth of the season, a gentle reminder of the hidden vitality sleeping within the ice. The highest peak on the continent rises high above the clouds in the Sentinel Range. Mount Vinson stands at an elevation of 16,050 feet, or 4,892 meters, a jagged pyramid of rock and ice that dominates the skyline. Unlike the famous peaks of the Himalayas, Vinson was not even discovered until 1958, remaining hidden from human knowledge for most of history. It is a mountain of solitude, located deeply within the interior, far from the coast and the research stations. Climbers who ascend it face extreme cold and wind, standing on the roof of the bottom of the world. From the summit, the view is one of endless rolling white, a landscape that looks more like a frozen ocean than land. It is a silent giant, the crowning jewel of the Antarctic ranges, holding its head high in the thin, freezing air. A unique fish swims in the freezing waters with blood as clear as water. The ocellated icefish has evolved a remarkable way to survive in the sub-zero temperatures of the Southern Ocean. It has completely lost the hemoglobin that makes blood red. Its blood is transparent, carrying oxygen dissolved directly in the plasma, which is possible because cold water is incredibly oxygen-rich. Furthermore, its body produces natural antifreeze proteins that prevent ice crystals from forming in its veins. This ghostly pale creature is a biological marvel, stripping away the very essence of what we think blood should look like to adapt to its environment. It drifts through the kelp forests and rocky bottoms, a phantom of the deep. It is a perfect example of nature's ingenuity, finding a way to keep the heart beating even in the coldest water on Earth. The freezing waters cause sea creatures to grow to unusual and monstrous sizes. This phenomenon is known as polar gigantism, and it results in sea spiders the size of dinner plates and sponges that grow as large as bears. The water here is dense with oxygen and very stable in temperature, which allows these invertebrates to grow slowly over very long lives. Without the high metabolism required in warmer waters, they can focus their energy on size, becoming the giants of their dark domain. A sea spider here can have legs spanning 10 inches or 25 centimeters, making it terrifyingly large compared to its tiny cousins elsewhere. In the slow-motion world of the Antarctic floor, these creatures are the ancient rulers. They move with deliberate, heavy grace, silent titans thriving in the cold, dark pressure of the southern deep. The air in the high southern latitudes is among the cleanest found anywhere on the planet. At monitoring stations in Antarctica, And at places like Cape Grim in Tasmania, scientists measure air that has travelled over the vast Southern Ocean without passing over any major cities. It is air that has been scrubbed by the sea and the distance, free from the exhaust and smoke that blankets much of the rest of the world. This purity makes it the perfect control group for understanding how humans are changing the climate. Breathing it feels sharp and crisp, a shock to the lungs accustomed to the dust of civilization. It is the atmosphere in its most natural state, a transparent and pristine gas. The wind here carries nothing but the smell of the salt and the cold, a refreshing draft from a cleaner, simpler time. This is the only continent on Earth where ants have never established a colony. While these industrious insects have conquered every other landmass, building empires in rainforests and deserts alike, they cannot survive the deep freeze of Antarctica. The ground is permanently frozen or covered in ice, preventing them from digging the tunnels and nests they need to thrive. This absence leaves the ground strangely quiet, lacking the busy scurrying that characterizes the soil of the rest of the world. It is a rare gap in the dominance of the insect kingdom, a boundary line drawn by the cold. Here, the small collective intelligence of the ant colony is replaced by the silence of the rocks. The continent remains a fortress against them, a land where the soil sleeps undisturbed by millions of tiny, marching feet. The magnetic heart of the south is constantly on the move, refusing to stay in one place. The magnetic South Pole is distinct from the geographic South Pole. While the geographic pole is a fixed point on the map, the magnetic pole wanders due to shifting flows of molten iron in the Earth's core. It has moved hundreds of miles over the last century and is currently located off the coast of Antarctica, drifting toward Australia. This means that a compass used here behaves erratically, and the aurora australis moves along with it. It is a reminder that the forces governing our planet are dynamic and fluid, not static. The magnetic pole is a restless spirit, a wandering point of energy that refuses to be pinned down. It glides invisibly across the ocean and the ice, a traveler guided by the deep, churning currents of the Earth's center. The continent is slowly being stretched apart by massive geological forces deep underground. The West Antarctic Rift System is one of the largest continental rifts on Earth, a zone where the crust is thinning and pulling apart. This stretching creates deep basins and has allowed magma to rise close to the surface, fueling the volcanoes hidden beneath the ice sheet. It is a slow-motion tearing of the land, operating on a timescale of millions of years, unseen by the observers above. This heat from below lubricates the bottom of the glaciers, helping them slide faster toward the ocean. It is a hidden drama of rock and fire, a silent violence occurring beneath the peaceful white surface. The Earth here is not dead. It is shifting and groaning in its sleep, reshaping the foundations of the continent from the inside out. A historic British base now serves as the world's most remote and charming post office. Port Lockroy, located on a small island off the Antarctic Peninsula, is a museum and a working post office operated by a small team during the summer. Thousands of postcards are mailed from here every year, stamped with a penguin mark and sent on a long journey to destinations all over the globe. The station is surrounded by a colony of Gentoo penguins, who often waddle up to the building, curious about their human neighbors. It is a place of connection, where ink and paper bridge the vast distance between the frozen south and the warm homes of loved ones. It stands as a quaint outpost of civilization, a tiny wooden building where memories are packaged and sent flying across the stormy seas. The ice sheet is so heavy that it actually alters the Earth's gravity field. The mass of the ice in Antarctica is immense, and because gravity is determined by mass, the pull of the Earth is slightly stronger here than in areas with less rock or water. Satellites like the GRACE mission measure these subtle anomalies, tracking how the gravity shifts as the ice melts and moves. If a significant amount of ice is lost, the gravitational pull weakens, causing water to drift away and raising sea levels disproportionately in the northern hemisphere. It is a display of the ice's true power. It does not just sit on the surface but warps the physics of the planet around it. The continent acts as a gravitational anchor, a heavy white heart that holds the world's waters in a delicate, invisible balance. The winter temperature drops rapidly and then refuses to change for months. This phenomenon is known to meteorologists as the coreless winter. In most places, temperature follows a curve, dipping to a low point and then rising. But in the Antarctic interior, the temperature hits a floor of about -76 degrees Fahrenheit or -60 degrees Celsius and stays there flat for the entire winter. This happens because there is no sunlight to warm the surface, and the heat from the distant ocean is blocked by the winds. It creates a long, monotonous season of extreme cold, a plateau of freezing stability. The weather becomes a steady, unyielding force, lacking the daily fluctuations we are used to. It is a time when the atmosphere holds its breath, locked in a deep, frozen stasis until the sun finally returns to break the spell. Dust from distant lands creates miniature ecosystems within the solid ice. When dark dust particles blow onto a glacier, they absorb more sunlight than the surrounding white snow and melt a small cylindrical hole called a cryoconite hole. Inside these tiny pockets of water, microscopic life forms, bacteria, algae, and tardigrades create a thriving community. These holes are like little oases in the desert of ice, providing liquid water and shelter for organisms that would otherwise freeze. They are proof that life is opportunistic, finding a foothold in the smallest of niches. Looking at the glacier surface, one sees only pockmarks, but inside each one is a hidden universe. It is a microscopic archipelago of life, a secret network of survival hidden just beneath the surface of the sleeping giant. For some penguins, small stones are more valuable than gold. Adelie, penguins build their nests out of pebbles to keep their eggs elevated above the melting snow and slush. Because good stones are scarce on the rocky beaches, they become a highly prized currency, and penguins will frequently steal them from their neighbors' nests when they aren't looking. This leads to a constant, comical shuffling of rocks across the colony as birds tirelessly build and rebuild their small fortresses. It is a display of determination and instinct, a serious business for the birds who need the perfect pile of rocks to raise their young. These stones are the foundation of the next generation, carefully collected and guarded. They represent the simple, stony love of the parents, building a safe home one pebble at a time in a harsh land. Conditions here are so extreme that space agencies use them to train for Mars. At the remote Concordia station, located high on the plateau, the environment is one of the most isolated on Earth. The air is thin and dry, the temperature is deadly, and for months, the crew is completely cut off from the rest of the world, unable to leave even in an emergency. The European Space Agency studies the crew to understand how humans cope with the psychological stress of long-term isolation and confinement, just like astronauts would on a trip to the Red Planet. It is a laboratory for the human mind, pushing resilience to its limits. The station sits like a spaceship that has landed on the ice, a tiny bubble of light and warmth where humanity practices for its future among the stars. The horizon can vanish completely, leaving travelers floating in a void of white. This dangerous weather condition is called a whiteout, and it occurs when the light from the overcast sky bounces off the snow in every direction, eliminating all shadows and contrast. Without shadows, the human eye loses the ability to judge depth or distance. The ground and the sky merge into a seamless, milky wall. Walking in a whiteout feels like walking in nothingness, where up and down become difficult to distinguish. It is a disorienting and dreamlike state, stripping away the visual anchors of the world. It forces one to rely on other senses, or simply to stop and wait. It is the landscape dissolving into pure abstraction, a reminder of how much we rely on the light to define our reality. Antarctica is, on average, the highest continent on Earth. While it has mountain ranges, its great height comes mainly from the incredible thickness of the ice sheet itself, which lifts the surface far above sea level. The average elevation is about 7,500 feet, or 2,300 meters, which is higher than many mountain peaks in other parts of the world. This means that visitors to the interior often struggle with altitude sickness, breathing thin air while standing on what looks like a flat plain. It is a plateau built not of rock, but of frozen water accumulated over eons. The continent literally rises to meet the sky, a towering platform of white. It holds its head in the upper atmosphere, a high and lonely stage where the air is rare and the view stretches on forever. Buried deep within the ice is the world's largest telescope, looking down to see the stars. The Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory is not a glass lens pointed at the sky, but a cubic kilometer of clear ice located beneath the South Pole, instrumented with thousands of sensitive sensors. It detects neutrinos, nearly invisible ghost particles that travel through the universe and pass right through the Earth. The ice acts as a perfect bubble-free medium, catching the faint flashes of blue light produced when these particles interact with the frozen water. By looking downward into the ice, scientists are actually studying violent cosmic events happening billions of light years away in the northern sky. It is a paradox of science, where the deepest, darkest ice becomes a window into the fiery origins of the cosmos. The glacier itself serves as the eye of the telescope, a silent, frozen observer waiting patiently to catch the fleeting whispers of the universe. Time loses its usual meaning at the exact bottom of the world, because all the lines of longitude which define our time zones converge at the South Pole. The continent technically contains every time zone on Earth at a single point. You could walk through all 24 time zones in just a few steps, circling the pole and traveling through yesterday, today, and tomorrow in seconds. Since the sun rises only once a year, the usual cues for morning and evening do not exist, rendering the clock a purely artificial tool. To keep operations running smoothly, research stations usually adopt the time zone of their supply base, such as New Zealand time for the McMurdo station. It is a place where human attempts to measure and divide the day dissolve into the white vastness, leaving only the eternal circular rhythm of the polar sun. Tiny winged snails, known as sea butterflies, dance through the cold waters. Pteropods are microscopic marine snails that have evolved a modified foot, resembling a pair of wings, allowing them to fly through the water column. Their shells are made of delicate calcium carbonate, appearing almost like transparent glass as they drift in the currents. Despite their fragile appearance, they are a foundational part of the Antarctic food web, serving as a crucial energy source for fish and seabirds. However, they are also the sentinels of ocean health, as their thin shells are highly sensitive to changes in the water's chemistry. They drift in the millions, a beautiful, unseen swarm of glass wings fluttering in the deep. They are the fairies of the Southern Ocean, small and exquisite lives that play a vital role in sustaining the giants that swim beside them. A massive dinosaur once hunted in the forests that covered this now frozen land. Scientists have discovered the fossils of Cryolophosaurus, a predator that lived in Antarctica during the early Jurassic period, about 190 million years ago. This creature was about 21 feet, or 6.5 meters, long and is distinguished by a bizarre, forward-curling crest on its head, earning it the nickname the Elvis dinosaur. Its discovery proves that Antarctica was not always a wasteland of ice, but once supported a rich ecosystem of ferns, rivers, and large reptiles. The bones were found high in the Transantarctic Mountains, encased in rock that was once a muddy riverbed. These fossils are stone echoes of a warmer world, silent reminders that the climate of our planet is ever-changing. The ice now covers their ancient hunting grounds, sealing the memory of the dragons that once walked the south. A road made entirely of snow stretches for hundreds of miles across the interior. The South Pole Traverse is a logistical marvel, a flagged route that connects the coastal McMurdo Station to the South Pole, covering a distance of about 1,000 miles, or 1,600 kilometers. It is not paved with asphalt, but is simply a path of compacted snow and filled crevasses, maintained by heavy tractors that tow supplies on giant sleds. The journey takes weeks, moving at a slow, steady pace through a landscape that offers nothing but white horizon in every direction. Drivers must navigate through potential storms and whiteouts, relying on radar to avoid hidden cracks in the ice. It is the loneliest highway on Earth, a thin ribbon of human determination drawn across the blank canvas of the plateau, enabling life to persist in the frozen heart of the continent. Occasionally, an iceberg will appear that is the color of emerald green rather than white or blue. While most icebergs are made of compressed snow or glacier ice, these rare green bergs are formed from marine ice that has frozen to the bottom of an ice shelf. As the water freezes, it traps iron-rich rock dust, known as glacial flour, which has been ground off the bedrock by the movement of the glaciers. When this iron-rich ice breaks off and capsizes, revealing its underside, the combination of the yellow iron oxide and the natural blue of the ice creates a stunning green hue. They float like massive gemstones in the dark sea, startlingly colorful against the monochrome background. They are nature's alchemy, a beautiful byproduct of the grinding earth and the freezing sea, carrying vital nutrients to the open ocean as they slowly melt away. The water in the Weddell Sea is claimed to be the clearest of any ocean on Earth. In 1986, scientists dropped a specialized disk into the water to measure visibility and found that it was visible at a depth of 262 feet, or 80 meters. This level of transparency is almost identical to that of distilled water, meaning there are very few particles or algae clouding the view. The clarity is due to the lack of runoff from the land, as there are no muddy rivers flowing into the sea, and the stillness of the water under the ice. It creates a mesmerizing underwater world where sunlight can penetrate deeply, illuminating the sea floor in a way that happens nowhere else. It is a liquid crystal, a pristine and silent medium that holds the secrets of the deep in perfect, transparent suspension. The highest point of the ice sheet is a place of perfect stillness and clarity. Dome A, or Dome Argus, is the highest ice dome on the Antarctic plateau, sitting at an elevation of 13,428 feet, or 4,093 meters. It is thought to be one of the coldest places naturally occurring on Earth, but also the calmest, with very little wind to disturb the atmosphere. This lack of turbulence makes it perhaps the best location on the planet for ground-based astronomy, offering a view of the stars that is free from the shimmering distortion caused by moving air. The stars here do not twinkle, they burn with a steady, unblinking light. It is a place where the sky feels closer to the ground, a silent summit of ice where the window to the universe is thrown wide open. Massive seals with trunks like elephants dive deeper than almost any other mammal. The southern elephant seal is the largest seal species, with males weighing up to 8,800 pounds or 4,000 kilograms and sporting a large inflatable nose. These giants spend most of their lives at sea, diving to incredible depths of over 5,000 feet or 1,500 meters to hunt for squid and fish in the pitch black. They can hold their breath for up to 2 hours, slowing their heart rate to a mere few beats per minute to conserve oxygen. When they return to the beaches to breed, they engage in thunderous battles for dominance, their roars echoing off the cliffs. They are masters of two worlds, clumsy and heavy on the land, but graceful and enduring in the crushing pressure of the deep ocean. Ancient banks of moss are the forests of the frozen continent. On the Antarctic Peninsula, where the weather is slightly milder, beds of moss have been growing slowly for over 5,000 years. These banks can be several feet deep, building up layer by layer like peat, preserving a record of the climate within their tissues. In the short summer, they turn a vibrant green, soaking up the sunlight and water before freezing solid again for the winter. They are the oldest living things in Antarctica, silent witnesses to millennia of history that have passed without human observation. Recently, they have been growing faster due to warming temperatures, a green signal of a changing world. They are the humble, resilient elders of the landscape, clinging to the rock and persisting through the ages with quiet, vegetative patience. Humpback whales travel thousands of miles to feast in the nutrient-rich southern waters. After breeding in the warm, tropical waters near the equator, these majestic leviathans migrate south to Antarctica to feed on the massive swarms of krill. They have developed a clever hunting technique called bubble net feeding, where they work together to blow a ring of bubbles that traps the krill, then swim upward with their mouths open to scoop up the feast. The silence of the bays is often broken by the sound of their breathing and the splashing of their massive tails. They are the seasonal pilgrims of the ocean, drawn by the abundance of life that blooms in the cold. Their presence transforms the desolate waters into a vibrant dining hall, a celebration of life and energy at the bottom of the world. One specific glacier is often called the Doomsday Glacier, due to its massive size and instability. The Thwaites Glacier is roughly the size of the state of Florida, or the island of Great Britain, a colossal river of ice flowing into the Amundsen Sea. It is currently melting and retreating at a concerning rate, and it acts as a keystone that holds back the rest of the West Antarctic ice sheet. If it were to collapse, it could release enough ice to raise global sea levels significantly, reshaping coastlines around the world. Scientists traverse its crevassed surface to study its speed, listening to the groans of the ice as it shifts. It is a reminder of the fragility of our world, a single silent giant whose fate is intimately tied to the future of cities thousands of miles away. Killer whales in Antarctica have developed a sophisticated way to hunt seals resting on ice floes. Known as wave washing, this technique involves a pod of orcas swimming in perfect synchronization toward a floating piece of ice. At the last moment, they dive under the ice, creating a precise wave that washes over the surface and knocks the seal into the water. This behavior is learned and passed down through generations, a form of culture and education among the whales. It demonstrates a high level of intelligence and cooperation, turning the physics of the water into a tool. The orcas move like a wolf pack of the sea, silent and strategic. It is a dance of predator and prey played out on the shifting stage of the broken ice, a display of nature's raw and calculated power. The glaciers act as massive millstones, grinding the bedrock into a fine powder. As the heavy ice slides over the continent, it crushes the rock beneath it into a substance known as glacial flour. When this fine, mineral-rich dust reaches the ocean, it clouds the water with a milky turquoise color and provides essential nutrients like iron to the marine ecosystem. This fertilization triggers massive blooms of algae and phytoplankton, which in turn feed the krill and the whales. The grinding of the mountains is not a destructive act, but a creative one, feeding the life of the ocean. It is a cycle where the erosion of the land fuels the abundance of the sea, a slow geological digestion that sustains the vibrant food web of the south. The leopard seal is a solitary hunter with a reputation that matches its reptilian appearance. Unlike other seals that appear chubby and friendly, the leopard seal has a long, muscular body and a massive head that looks almost like a dinosaur. They are the only seals that regularly hunt warm-blooded prey, including penguins and other seals, patrolling the edges of the ice with a silent, predatory grace. Despite their fierce nature, they also sing eerie, trilling songs underwater during the breeding season, sounds that can be felt vibrating through the hull of a small boat. They are the dragons of the ice floes, ruling their territory with a sleek and powerful confidence. In the water, they are undisputed masters, a blend of beauty and danger that commands respect from all who encounter them. Technically, the entire continent is classified as a desert. We define deserts not by heat, but by the amount of precipitation they receive, and Antarctica is the driest continent on Earth. The interior receives less than 2 inches, or 50 millimeters, of precipitation per year, which is less rain than the Sahara Desert sees. The moisture that does fall comes as tiny ice crystals, which build up over millions of years simply because they never melt. The air is so dry that it preserves food, equipment, and even footprints for decades without decay. It is a white desert, a parched land disguised by the abundance of frozen water. The dryness creates a landscape of preservation, a sterile and static world where the usual cycles of rot and renewal are frozen in place. The Ross seal is the most elusive and least understood of all the Antarctic seals. Living deep within the heavy pack ice where ships cannot easily travel, they are rarely seen by humans. They have very large eyes to see in the dark water and a unique ability to retract their eyes into their sockets for protection. When approached, they raise their heads and sing a strange, siren-like song, tilting their heads back in a display that looks almost extraterrestrial. Because they live in such hard-to-reach areas, we know very little about their population or habits. They are the ghosts of the pack ice, living their lives in the secret, inaccessible spaces between the floes. They represent the parts of the map that are still blank, the mysteries that the ice continues to guard jealously. Ice does not just sit still, it flows like a very slow river of honey. Glaciers are not solid blocks of stone, but dynamic rivers of ice that deform and move under their own massive weight. Gravity pulls the ice from the high interior plateau down toward the coast, causing it to slide and spread over the land. In some steep areas, the ice can flow several feet per day, cracking and groaning as it navigates the terrain. This movement is the circulatory system of the continent, transporting the snowfall of the past out to the ocean to become icebergs. It is a fluid motion that happens on a timescale almost too slow for us to perceive. It is the Earth breathing in slow motion, a majestic, sliding journey of water returning to its source. The atmosphere above the South Pole creates a container for the cold, known as the polar vortex. During the winter, strong winds circle the continent high in the stratosphere, creating a barrier that prevents warmer air from the north from mixing with the polar air. This isolation allows the temperatures inside the vortex to drop to incredible lows, creating a distinct pool of freezing air that sits over the continent like a lid. It is this vortex that enables the unique chemistry of the ozone hole and maintains the deep freeze of the interior. It is an invisible wall of wind, a circular fortress that defends the cold against the warmth of the rest of the planet. The vortex spins silently in the dark, a guardian of the winter that keeps the South frozen and separate. Mining is strictly forbidden on the continent, protecting its treasures from human greed. The Protocol on Environmental Protection to the Antarctic Treaty, often called the Madrid Protocol, bans all mining and mineral exploration in Antarctica indefinitely. While the continent is known to hold valuable deposits of coal, iron, and perhaps oil, the nations of the world agreed that this land is more valuable as a pristine wilderness than as a quarry. This agreement makes Antarctica the largest protected area on Earth, a park dedicated to nature and peace. It is a rare example of humanity deciding to leave a treasure chest unopened. The rocks remain in the ground, undisturbed parts of the mountain, safe from the drills and excavators that have reshaped the rest of the world. Time loses its usual meaning at the exact bottom of the world. Because all the lines of longitude, which define our time zones, converge at the South Pole, the continent technically contains every time zone on Earth at a single point. You could walk through all 24 time zones in just a few steps, circling the pole and traveling through yesterday, today, and tomorrow in seconds. Since the sun rises only once a year, the usual cues for morning and evening do not exist, rendering the clock a purely artificial tool. To keep operations running smoothly, research stations usually adopt the time zone of their supply base, such as New Zealand time for the McMurdo station. It is a place where human attempts to measure and divide the day dissolve into the white vastness, leaving only the eternal circular rhythm of the polar sun. Tiny, winged snails known as sea butterflies dance through the cold waters. Pteropods are microscopic marine snails that have evolved a modified foot resembling a pair of wings, allowing them to fly through the water column. Their shells are made of delicate calcium carbonate, appearing almost like transparent glass as they drift in the currents. Despite their fragile appearance, they are a foundational part of the Antarctic food web, serving as a crucial energy source for fish and seabirds. However, they are also the sentinels of ocean health, as their thin shells are highly sensitive to changes in the water's chemistry. They drift in the millions, a beautiful unseen swarm of glass wings fluttering in the deep. They are the fairies of the Southern Ocean, small and exquisite lives that play a vital role in sustaining the giants that swim beside them. A massive dinosaur once hunted in the forests that covered this now frozen land. Scientists have discovered the fossils of Cryolophosaurus, a predator that lived in Antarctica during the early Jurassic period, about 190 million years ago. This creature was about 21 feet, or 6.5 meters, long, and is distinguished by a bizarre, forward-curling crest on its head, earning it the nickname the Elvis dinosaur. Its discovery proves that Antarctica was not always a wasteland of ice, but once supported a rich ecosystem of ferns, rivers, and large reptiles. The bones were found high in the Transantarctic mountains, encased in rock that was once a muddy riverbed. These fossils are stone echoes of a warmer world, silent reminders that the climate of our planet is ever-changing. The ice now covers their ancient hunting grounds, sealing the memory of the dragons that once walked the south. A road made entirely of snow stretches for hundreds of miles across the interior. The South Pole Traverse is a logistical marvel, a flagged route that connects the coastal McMurdo Station to the South Pole, covering a distance of about 1,000 miles, or 1,600 kilometers. It is not paved with asphalt, but is simply a path of compacted snow and filled crevasses, maintained by heavy tractors that tow supplies on giant sleds. The journey takes weeks, moving at a slow, steady pace through a landscape that offers nothing but white horizon in every direction. Drivers must navigate through potential storms and whiteouts, relying on radar to avoid hidden cracks in the ice. It is the loneliest highway on Earth, a thin ribbon of human determination drawn across the blank canvas of the plateau, enabling life to persist in the frozen heart of the continent. Occasionally, an iceberg will appear that is the color of emerald green rather than white or blue. While most icebergs are made of compressed snow or glacier ice, these rare green bergs are formed from marine ice that has frozen to the bottom of an ice shelf. As the water freezes, it traps iron-rich rock dust, known as glacial flour, which has been ground off the bedrock by the movement of the glaciers. When this iron-rich ice breaks off and capsizes, revealing its underside, the combination of the yellow iron oxide and the natural blue of the ice creates a stunning green hue. They float like massive gemstones in the dark sea, startlingly colorful against the monochrome background. They are nature's alchemy, a beautiful byproduct of the grinding earth and the freezing sea, carrying vital nutrients to the open ocean as they slowly melt away. The water in the Weddell Sea is claimed to be the clearest of any ocean on Earth. In 1986, scientists dropped a specialized disc into the water to measure visibility, and found that it was visible at a depth of 262 feet, or 80 meters. This level of transparency is almost identical to that of distilled water, meaning there are very few particles or algae clouding the view. The clarity is due to the lack of runoff from the land, as there are no muddy rivers flowing into the sea, and the stillness of the water under the ice. It creates a mesmerizing underwater world where sunlight can penetrate deeply, illuminating the seafloor in a way that happens nowhere else. It is a liquid crystal, a pristine and silent medium that holds the secrets of the deep in perfect, transparent suspension. The highest point of the ice sheet is a place of perfect stillness and clarity. Dome A, or Dome Argus, is the highest ice dome on the Antarctic plateau, sitting at an elevation of 13,428 feet, or 4,093 meters. It is thought to be one of the coldest places naturally occurring on Earth, but also the calmest, with very little wind to disturb the atmosphere. This lack of turbulence makes it perhaps the best location on the planet for ground-based astronomy, offering a view of the stars that is free from the shimmering distortion caused by moving air. The stars here do not twinkle. They burn with a steady, unblinking light. It is a place where the sky feels closer to the ground, a silent summit of ice where the window to the universe is thrown wide open. Massive seals with trunks like elephants dive deeper than almost any other mammal. The southern elephant seal is the largest seal species, with males weighing up to 8,800 pounds or 4,000 kilograms and sporting a large inflatable nose. These giants spend most of their lives at sea, diving to incredible depths of over 5,000 feet or 1,500 meters to hunt for squid and fish in the pitch black. They can hold their breath for up to 2 hours, slowing their heart rate to a mere few beats per minute to conserve oxygen. When they return to the beaches to breed, they engage in thunderous battles for dominance, their roars echoing off the cliffs. They are masters of two worlds, clumsy and heavy on the land, but graceful and enduring in the crushing pressure of the deep ocean. Ancient banks of moss are the forests of the frozen continent. On the Antarctic Peninsula, where the weather is slightly milder, beds of moss have been growing slowly for over 5,000 years. These banks can be several feet deep, building up layer by layer like peat, preserving a record of the climate within their tissues. In the short summer, they turn a vibrant green, soaking up the sunlight and water before freezing solid again for the winter. They are the oldest living things in Antarctica, silent witnesses to millennia of history that have passed without human observation. Recently, they have been growing faster due to warming temperatures, a green signal of a changing world. They are the humble, resilient elders of the landscape, clinging to the rock and persisting through the ages with quiet, vegetative patience. Humpback whales travel thousands of miles to feast in the nutrient-rich southern waters. After breeding in the warm, tropical waters near the equator, these majestic leviathans migrate south to Antarctica to feed on the massive swarms of krill. They have developed a clever hunting technique called bubble net feeding, where they work together to blow a ring of bubbles that traps the krill, then swim upward with their mouths open to scoop up the feast. The silence of the bays is often broken by the sound of their breathing and the splashing of their massive tails. They are the seasonal pilgrims of the ocean, drawn by the abundance of life that blooms in the cold. Their presence transforms the desolate waters into a vibrant dining hall, a celebration of life and energy at the bottom of the world. One specific glacier is often called the Doomsday Glacier, due to its massive size and instability. The Thwaites Glacier is roughly the size of the state of Florida, or the island of Great Britain, a colossal river of ice flowing into the Amundsen Sea. It is currently melting and retreating at a concerning rate, and it acts as a keystone that holds back the rest of the West Antarctic ice sheet. If it were to collapse, it could release enough ice to raise global sea levels significantly, reshaping coastlines around the world. Scientists traverse its crevassed surface to study its speed, listening to the groans of the ice as it shifts. It is a reminder of the fragility of our world, a single, silent giant whose fate is intimately tied to the future of cities thousands of miles away. Killer whales in Antarctica have developed a sophisticated way to hunt seals resting on ice floes. Known as wave washing, this technique involves a pod of orcas swimming in perfect synchronization toward a floating piece of ice. At the last moment, they dive under the ice, creating a precise wave that washes over the surface and knocks the seal into the water. This behavior is learned and passed down through generations, a form of culture and education among the whales. It demonstrates a high level of intelligence and cooperation, turning the physics of the water into a tool. The orcas move like a wolf pack of the sea, silent and strategic. It is a dance of predator and prey played out on the shifting stage of the broken ice, a display of nature's raw and calculated power. The glaciers act as massive millstones, grinding the bedrock into a fine powder. As the heavy ice slides over the continent, it crushes the rock beneath it into a substance known as glacial flour. When this fine, mineral-rich dust reaches the ocean, it clouds the water with a milky turquoise color and provides essential nutrients like iron to the marine ecosystem. This fertilization triggers massive blooms of algae and phytoplankton, which in turn feed the krill and the whales. The grinding of the mountains is not a destructive act, but a creative one, feeding the life of the ocean. It is a cycle where the erosion of the land fuels the abundance of the sea, a slow geological digestion that sustains the vibrant food web of the south. The leopard seal is a solitary hunter, with a reputation that matches its reptilian appearance. Unlike other seals that appear chubby and friendly, the leopard seal has a long, muscular body and a massive head that looks almost like a dinosaur. They are the only seals that regularly hunt warm-blooded prey, including penguins and other seals, patrolling the edges of the ice with a silent, predatory grace. Despite their fierce nature, they also sing eerie, trilling songs underwater during the breeding season, sounds that can be felt vibrating through the hull of a small boat. They are the dragons of the ice floes, ruling their territory with a sleek and powerful confidence. In the water, they are undisputed masters, a blend of beauty and danger that commands respect from all who encounter them. Technically, the entire continent is classified as a desert. We define deserts not by heat, but by the amount of precipitation they receive, and Antarctica is the driest continent on Earth. The interior receives less than 2 inches or 50 millimeters of precipitation per year, which is less rain than the Sahara Desert sees. The moisture that does fall comes as tiny ice crystals, which build up over millions of years simply because they never melt. The air is so dry that it preserves food, equipment, and even footprints for decades without decay. It is a white desert, a parched land disguised by the abundance of frozen water. The dryness creates a landscape of preservation, a sterile and static world where the usual cycles of rot and renewal are frozen in place. The Ross seal is the most elusive and least understood of all the Antarctic seals. Living deep within the heavy pack ice where ships cannot easily travel, they are rarely seen by humans. They have very large eyes to see in the dark water, and a unique ability to retract their eyes into their sockets for protection. When approached, they raise their heads and sing a strange, siren-like song, tilting their heads back in a display that looks almost extraterrestrial. Because they live in such hard-to-reach areas, we know very little about their population or habits. They are the ghosts of the pack ice, living their lives in the secret, inaccessible spaces between the floes. They represent the parts of the map that are still blank, the mysteries that the ice continues to guard jealously. Ice does not just sit still, it flows like a very slow river of honey. Glaciers are not solid blocks of stone, but dynamic rivers of ice that deform and move under their own massive weight. Gravity pulls the ice from the high interior plateau down toward the coast, causing it to slide and spread over the land. In some steep areas, the ice can flow several feet per day, cracking and groaning as it navigates the terrain. This movement is the circulatory system of the continent, transporting the snowfall of the past out to the ocean to become icebergs. It is a fluid motion that happens on a timescale almost too slow for us to perceive. It is the Earth breathing in slow motion, a majestic, sliding journey of water returning to its source. The atmosphere above the South Pole creates a container for the cold, known as the polar vortex. During the winter, strong winds circle the continent high in the stratosphere, creating a barrier that prevents warmer air from the north from mixing with the polar air. This isolation allows the temperatures inside the vortex to drop to incredible lows, creating a distinct pool of freezing air that sits over the continent like a lid. It is this vortex that enables the unique chemistry of the ozone hole and maintains the deep freeze of the interior. It is an invisible wall of wind, a circular fortress that defends the cold against the warmth of the rest of the planet. The vortex spins silently in the dark, a guardian of the winter that keeps the South frozen and separate. Mining is strictly forbidden on the continent, protecting its treasures from human greed. The Protocol on Environmental Protection to the Antarctic Treaty, often called the Madrid Protocol, bans all mining and mineral exploration in Antarctica indefinitely. While the continent is known to hold valuable deposits of coal, iron, and perhaps oil, the nations of the world agreed that this land is more valuable as a pristine wilderness than as a quarry. This agreement makes Antarctica the largest protected area on Earth, a park dedicated to nature and peace. It is a rare example of humanity deciding to leave a treasure chest unopened. The rocks remain in the ground, undisturbed parts of the mountain, safe from the drills and excavators that have reshaped the rest of the world. The deepest canyon on land remains hidden entirely from view beneath the ice. While the Grand Canyon is famous for its visual splendor, the Denman Glacier in East Antarctica conceals a trough that plunges far deeper into the Earth's crust. Radar surveys have revealed that the bedrock here sits about 11,500 feet, or 3,500 meters, below sea level. This gorge is filled to the brim with ice, a massive frozen river that grinds its way through the dark trench toward the sea. The pressure at the bottom of this canyon is immense, weighing down on rocks that have not seen the sun for eons. It is a geological secret of staggering proportions, a valley so deep that if the ice were removed, it would be a dark ocean abyss located in the middle of a continent. It stands as a silent reminder of how much of our own planet's geography remains a mystery, buried beneath the white blanket of the South. The windiest place on the planet is a bay that early explorers called the home of the blizzard. Commonwealth Bay, located on the coast of East Antarctica, is battered by katabatic winds that are funneled down from the high plateau like water through a nozzle. Here, the average wind speed can exceed 50 miles per hour, or 80 kilometers per hour, for days on end, with gusts frequently reaching 150 miles per hour, or 240 kilometers per hour. Walking upright is often impossible. Explorers had to crawl on their hands and knees to move between buildings. The wind is so constant that it polishes the ice to a glass-like finish and sculpts the snow into rock-hard ridges. Yet, there is a wild majesty to this turbulence, a place where the air itself is the dominant force, sweeping the land clean with an invisible roaring power that never sleeps. When ancient ice melts in a glass, it makes a unique popping sound known as Bergy Seltzer. The ice in Antarctica is formed from snow that has been compressed under heavy weight for thousands of years, squeezing the air between snowflakes into tiny, high-pressure bubbles. When a piece of this glacier ice is dropped into a drink or melts in the ocean, the ice wall weakens and the pressurized air explodes outward, creating a fizzy, crackling noise. This is not just ordinary air. It is a sample of the Earth's atmosphere from 10,000 or even 100,000 years ago. Listening to the sound is like hearing the past speak, a release of ancient breath that was trapped when mammoths still walked the earth. It is a sensory connection to deep time, a gentle, effervescent reminder of the long, frozen memory of the water. There are patches of open water that appear mysteriously in the middle of the sea ice. These areas are called polynyas, a Russian word meaning hole in the ice, and they act as vital breathing vents for the ocean. They are kept open by warm water rising from the depths or by fierce winds that push the newly formed ice away from the coast. These openings are like oases in a frozen desert, allowing sunlight to hit the water and triggering massive blooms of algae. This abundance of food attracts whales, seals, and penguins, who gather in the polynyas to feed and breathe. In the dead of winter, when the rest of the ocean is locked under a thick white lid, these steam-filled pools remain centers of life and energy. They are the lungs of the Southern Ocean, exhaling heat into the polar night and sustaining the rhythm of life in the cold. In the dry valleys, seals that died centuries ago remain perfectly preserved as statues. The McMurdo dry valleys are so cold and arid that the bacteria responsible for decomposition cannot survive, meaning that biological matter does not rot. Explorers have found the bodies of crab-eater seals that wandered inland and perished, their forms mummified by the dry wind and freezing temperatures. Some of these natural mummies are determined to be over 2,000 years old, yet they still retain their skin and fur, looking as if they had just fallen asleep. They rest on the brown gravel, silent monuments to the preserving power of the climate. It is a place where death does not lead to decay, but to a kind of eternal pause. The landscape holds these lost travelers in a gentle, frozen embrace, keeping their memory intact against the slow erosion of time. Antarctica is the only continent on Earth that is completely devoid of reptiles and amphibians. These creatures rely on their environment to regulate their body temperature, basking in the sun to get warm and hiding in the shade to cool down. The relentless cold of the Antarctic makes this lifestyle impossible, as a lizard or frog would freeze solid within minutes of exposure. While dinosaurs once roamed here when the land was warmer, the modern ice has created a barrier that cold-blooded animals cannot cross. This absence creates a unique biological silence. There are no frogs croaking in the marshes and no snakes slithering through the rocks. It is a kingdom reserved for the warm-blooded, for the birds and mammals that carry their own internal fire. The land remains a cold sanctuary, simplified and harsh, where only those who generate their own heat can endure. Under the ice of West Antarctica, scientists have discovered nearly 100 hidden volcanoes. A recent survey identified 91 previously unknown volcanoes buried deep beneath the massive West Antarctic ice sheet, adding to the 47 that were already known. This makes it one of the largest volcanic regions on Earth, rivaling the famous Rift System in East Africa. These mountains of fire are currently dormant, sleeping under miles of frozen water, but their presence raises questions about the future stability of the ice. If they were to wake, the heat could melt the ice from below, lubricating the glaciers and speeding up their flow to the sea. It is a dramatic juxtaposition of elements, a sleeping dragon of fire resting quietly beneath a blanket of eternal ice. The continent holds a hot, geological secret in its heart, a potential energy waiting in the dark. Rivers of liquid water flow uphill deep beneath the ice sheet. In the normal world, water always flows down due to gravity, but under the crushing weight of the Antarctic ice, physics behaves differently. The immense pressure of the ice above squeezes the water in subglacial rivers, forcing it to flow along the path of least resistance, even if that means going up the slope of a mountain valley buried below. These hidden rivers connect the subglacial lakes, moving water across the continent in a dark, high-pressure network that no human eye has ever seen. It is a hydraulic system of continental scale, operating in total darkness. The water moves with a silent, powerful purpose, defying the usual rules of the surface world. It is a reminder that beneath the stillness of the white horizon, there is a complex, moving world driven by the sheer weight of the ice itself. Fossils of a specific fern provide undeniable proof that the continents were once joined. Glossopteris was a woody seed-bearing shrub that grew in thick forests across the southern hemisphere about 250 million years ago. Fossils of its tongue-shaped leaves have been found in Antarctica, as well as in South America, Africa, India, and Australia. Since this plant could not have crossed vast oceans, its presence in the frozen rocks of Antarctica confirms that all these landmasses were once locked together in the supercontinent of Gondwana. Finding these leaves in the cold cliffs is like finding a matching puzzle piece that connects the entire globe. They tell the story of a time when Antarctica was the green heart of the world, a central hub of life. The stones hold the memory of this unity, silent witnesses to the slow drift that tore the world apart. A designated zone near the South Pole is kept perfectly dark to listen to the universe. The dark sector at the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station is an area where light and radio interference are strictly prohibited. Because the air is so cold and dry, it lacks the water vapor that usually blocks microwave signals from space, making it one of the best places on Earth for astronomy. Telescopes here scan the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, searching for clues about the origins of time. In this zone, no flashlights are allowed, and aircraft are diverted to keep the sky pristine. It is a sanctuary for darkness, where the absence of human noise allows the faint whispers of the cosmos to be heard. The ice acts as a platform for looking outward, a quiet, frozen stage for observing the grand machinery of the stars. A fruitcake left behind by early explorers remains perfectly preserved after more than a century. In a hut at Cape Adare, conservators discovered a tin containing a fruitcake made by the British biscuit company Huntley and Palmers, dating back to the Terra Nova expedition of roughly 1911. Despite sitting in a rusting tin for over 100 years, the cake was found to be in excellent condition, smelling distinctively edible and wrapping fresh. The extreme cold and lack of bacteria had paused the natural process of decay, keeping the cake as a time capsule of Edwardian provisions. It is a small human detail in a landscape of vast, impersonal forces. It serves as a touching reminder of the explorers who brought the comforts of home to the harshest place on Earth, leaving behind crumbs of history that the ice has gently refused to erase. The Gentoo penguin is the fastest underwater swimmer of all the diving birds. While they may look comical waddling on land, once they enter the water, they transform into hydrodynamic torpedoes. Gentoos have been clocked at speeds of up to 22 miles per hour, or 36 kilometers per hour, using their strong, stiff wings to fly through the ocean. This speed allows them to outmaneuver predators and catch fish with incredible efficiency. They are the athletes of the penguin world, marked by a bright orange beak and a white bonnet-like strap across their heads. Watching them swim is a display of pure power and grace, a stark contrast to their clumsy movements on the ice. They are masters of the medium, creatures built for the cold rush of the sea, living their truest lives beneath the waves. For centuries, Antarctica appeared on maps before anyone had actually seen it. Ancient Greek philosophers, including Aristotle, believed that the Earth must be balanced and that a massive landmass in the north must be counterweighted by a similar landmass in the south. They named this theoretical continent Terra Australis Incognita, or the unknown southern land. Mapmakers drew it as a massive continent filled with monsters and treasures purely out of a belief in symmetry. It wasn't until 1820 that human eyes actually confirmed the existence of the ice shelf, realizing the land was far colder and more desolate than the myths suggested. The continent began as an idea, a phantom of the human imagination that eventually became real. It is a testament to our desire to find balance in the world, a land that existed in our minds long before it appeared in our telescopes. The night sky is sometimes lit by rainbows caused by the moon. These rare optical phenomena are called moonbows, and they occur when the light from a full moon refracts through ice crystals or diamond dust in the air. Because moonlight is much fainter than sunlight, these bows often appear as ghostly white arches to the human eye, though a camera can sometimes reveal their faint colors. They hang in the dark sky like portals, soft and ethereal against the backdrop of the stars. Seeing one requires a perfect combination of clear air, ice crystals, and a bright moon, making them a special gift of the polar night. They are the quiet cousins of the rainbow, a subtle and mysterious display of light that graces the long, dark winter with a touch of magic. The Transantarctic Mountains hold one of the largest coal reserves in the world. It seems impossible that a continent covered in ice could contain a fuel formed from ancient swamps and forests. But the rocks do not lie. These coal seams date back to the Permian period, roughly 260 million years ago, when the land was covered in lush vegetation. The presence of this coal is a stark physical memory of the drastic changes the Earth has undergone. It sits there, locked in the frozen mountains, a vast store of energy that will never be burned. It serves as a geological paradox. Black rock made of ancient sunlight buried in a land of eternal dark and cold. It is a silent vault of the planet's history, preserving the carbon of a forgotten, greener world. Chinstrap penguins have developed a way to sleep for only seconds at a time. To protect their chicks from predatory birds like skuas, nesting chinstrap penguins cannot afford to sleep for long periods. Instead, they take thousands of microsleeps every day, each lasting only about 4 seconds. Over the course of a day, these tiny naps add up to more than 11 hours of rest, allowing them to remain vigilant almost constantly. It is a remarkable adaptation to the stress of parenthood in a dangerous environment. The colony is a noisy, busy place, and the parents drift in and out of consciousness in the blink of an eye. This fragmented sleep is a testament to the extreme demands of life on the ice. They are the sleepless sentinels, sacrificing their own rest to ensure the survival of the next generation. The deeper you look into a crevasse, the more intense the color becomes. The ice of Antarctica is not merely white. Inside the deep cracks and fissures, it turns a stunning shade of violet blue or indigo. This happens because the ice absorbs every other color of the light spectrum, reds, oranges, and yellows, allowing only the high-energy blue light to scatter back to the eye. As the crack goes deeper, the absorption increases, and the blue deepens into a dark, rich purple that looks almost like ink. It is a color that feels alien, a hue of absolute purity that exists only in the depths of the glacier. Looking into these abysses is like looking into the heart of the ice itself. It is a reminder that the white surface is just a skin, hiding a world of vibrant, saturated color beneath the frozen crust. The tectonic plate that holds Antarctica is one of the most stationary on Earth. While other continental plates are constantly crashing into each other, causing earthquakes and building mountains, the Antarctic plate is surrounded by spreading ridges that push away from it on all sides. This effectively locks the continent in place at the bottom of the world, keeping it isolated in the polar region for the last 100 million years. This geological stillness is what has allowed the ice sheet to grow so large and persist for so long. The continent is the anchor of the southern hemisphere, a heavy, stable foundation that sits quietly while the rest of the world drifts and shifts. It is the calm center of the planet's geology, a massive plate of rock that has found its home and refuses to move. The front of the Ross Ice Shelf is a vertical wall of ice as high as a skyscraper. Early explorers called it the Great Ice Barrier because it presented an impenetrable cliff face that prevented their wooden ships from sailing further south. This wall rises between 50 and 200 feet, or 15 to 60 meters, above the waterline, and stretches for hundreds of miles. It is a daunting fortification of nature, a sheer drop of white that marks the end of the ocean and the beginning of the frozen continent. Standing beneath it in a small boat is a humbling experience, dwarfed by the scale of the ice. It stands as a silent guardian, a physical limit to human ambition. It is the edge of the known world, a massive cold curtain drawn across the bottom of the map. Microscopic water bears can survive the harsh interior where almost nothing else can. Tardigrades are tiny, eight-legged micro-animals known for their incredible resilience. In Antarctica, they have been found in the few nunataks, exposed mountain peaks, that poke through the ice sheet. When conditions become too cold or dry, they enter a state called cryptobiosis, curling into a dry ball and suspending their metabolism for years or even decades. They are essentially dead to the world, waiting for a single drop of meltwater to wake them up. They have survived all 5 of the Earth's mass extinction events and continue to thrive in the most hostile environment on the planet. They are the toughest residents of the South, microscopic masters of survival. They sleep through the freezing ages, tiny sparks of life hidden in the moss and dust, waiting for their moment to return. High in the atmosphere, clouds of rare and exquisite beauty form a mother-of-pearl display. Known as nacreous clouds or polar stratospheric clouds, these shimmering veils appear only when the temperature in the upper atmosphere drops to a staggering minus 108 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 78 degrees Celsius, because they form so high up, around 15 miles or 24 kilometers above the ground. They catch the light of the sun even when it is well below the horizon for the observer on the ice. The ice crystals within the clouds diffract the sunlight, splitting it into iridescent bands of pink, green, and blue that glow against the darkening sky. They look like oil on water, or the inside of a seashell painted across the heavens. While they are undeniably beautiful, they are also a sign of the extreme chemical conditions that can affect the ozone layer. They are the jeweled curtains of the stratosphere, a breathtaking warning of the delicate balance held in the cold, thin air. Alongside the mosses, a tiny flowering plant manages to bloom in the cracks of the rock. The Antarctic pearlwort is one of only 2 vascular plants native to the continent, looking like a small, cushion-like patch of green studded with tiny yellow or white flowers. It grows primarily on the Antarctic Peninsula, where the summers are just warm enough to melt the snow and expose the soil. It is incredibly resilient, capable of surviving being frozen solid, and then resuming growth the moment it thaws. In recent years, scientists have noticed these pearlworts spreading further south and growing faster, a green barometer of the warming climate. It is a humble pioneer, a speck of softness in a landscape dominated by hard ice and stone. In the silence of the rocky slopes, it unfurls its small petals, a quiet assertion of life's persistence against the overwhelming weight of the polar winter. A deadly finger of ice grows downward beneath the frozen sea, freezing everything it touches. This phenomenon is known as a brinicle, or sometimes the icy finger of death. It forms when super cold, extremely salty brine leaks out of the sea ice and sinks into the warmer, less dense seawater below. Because the brine is so cold, it freezes the seawater around it, creating a hollow, descending tube of ice that looks like a stalactite growing from the ceiling of a cave. When this icy finger reaches the sea floor, it spreads out, instantly freezing sea stars and urchins in a web of ice. It is a slow-motion trap, a quiet cascade of cold that creates a crystal graveyard on the ocean bottom. It is a hauntingly beautiful mechanism of the deep, a reminder of the intense physical forces at play in the silent, dark waters beneath the shelf. Planes landing on the continent often touch down on runways made of solid blue ice. Unlike airports in the rest of the world, which use asphalt or concrete, Antarctic airfields, like the one near Novolazaevskaya Station, utilize the natural ice sheet itself. The ice here is so old and compressed that it is as hard as rock, capable of supporting the weight of massive cargo aircraft. Crews prepare the runway by grading the surface to remove snow and bumps, creating a friction-filled strip of blue that stretches for miles. Pilots must be incredibly skilled, landing their machines on a surface that offers no forgiveness and very little grip compared to tarmac. It is a testament to human ingenuity, using the environment itself as infrastructure. The runway is a temporary scratch on the eternal ice, a blue road that welcomes travelers from the sky before eventually flowing slowly out to sea. Scientists have found a way to locate isolated penguin colonies by looking for their stains from space. Because the continent is so vast and the coastline so rugged, it is impossible to explore every bay by boat or foot to count the birds. Instead, researchers use high-resolution satellite imagery to scan the white ice for large patches of reddish-brown guano or penguin droppings. These stains stand out clearly against the pristine snow, acting as a beacon that reveals the location of thousands of Adelie or emperor penguins. This satellite archaeology has led to the discovery of colonies that no human had ever seen before. It is a remarkable use of technology, turning the emptiness of the map into a tool for discovery. From hundreds of miles above, the messy reality of life becomes a clear signal, a colorful mark of existence on the blank canvas of the south. On the slopes of the southernmost volcano, the ground sparkles with rare crystals found nowhere else in such abundance. Mount Erebus spews out a unique type of lava that is rich in a mineral called a orthoclase feldspar. As the lava bombs are ejected into the freezing air, they cool rapidly, and the rock around the crystal shatters, leaving the ground littered with perfect diamond-shaped crystals. These Erebus crystals can be as large as a human thumb, lying loose in the black volcanic sand and snow. They are geological treasures, born from the fire and refined by the cold. Explorers and scientists walking near the crater rim find themselves crunching over a landscape of natural jewelry. It is a place where the earth offers up its riches freely, scattering geometric perfection across the desolate, steaming summit of the Fire Mountain. The wind sometimes plays in the snow, rolling it into natural hollow cylinders. These formations are called snow rollers, and they occur when the wind is strong enough to pick up a chunk of moist snow and roll it along the ground, but not so strong that it blows the structure apart. They look like Swiss rolls or carpets of snow, often with a hole through the center, and they can grow to be quite large. They leave long tracks behind them on the hillsides, looking as if invisible children had been playing and left their toys behind. They require a perfect set of conditions: sticky snow, a specific wind speed, and a sloping surface, making them a rare and delightful sight. They are the whimsical sculptures of the gale, transient monuments to the playful interaction between the air and the frozen earth. Tiny, six-legged creatures act as the cleaners of the Antarctic soil. Springtails, or collembola, are less than a millimeter long, but they are the largest year-round land animals on the interior of the continent, as penguins and seals are technically marine animals. These microscopic hexapods live in the moss and under rocks, feeding on fungi and detritus. They have a unique tail-like structure that allows them to fling themselves into the air to escape danger, hence their name. They are capable of producing their own antifreeze proteins, allowing them to survive the brutal winter in a dormant state. They are the invisible herds of the south, grazing in the miniature forests of moss. In a land of giants like icebergs and whales, these tiny specks of life hold the ecosystem together, working silently in the frozen dirt. When a piece of ice skitters across a frozen lake, it makes a sound like a laser blaster from a science fiction movie. This acoustic phenomenon is known as dispersion, and it occurs on the frozen surface of lakes or newly formed sea ice. When ice cracks or is struck, the sound waves travel through the ice, but the high-pitched frequencies travel faster than the low-pitched ones. To a listener standing on the shore, the sound arrives as a descending pew or chirp, stretching out into a musical tone. It is an eerie, synthesized noise produced entirely by nature. In the profound silence of the Antarctic, these sudden, futuristic pings ring out with startling clarity. It is the ice singing its own strange song, a sonic quirk of physics that turns the frozen landscape into a natural instrument. Scientists are currently drilling deep into the plateau in search of ice that is 1.5 million years old. The project, often centered around a site called Little Dome Sea, aims to recover the oldest continuous ice core ever found. This ancient ice holds tiny bubbles of air from a time when the Earth's rhythm of ice ages shifted mysteriously. By analyzing this air, researchers hope to understand why the planet's climate cycles changed from every 40,000 years to every 100,000 years. It is a quest for the holy grail of climatology, buried nearly 2 miles or 3 kilometers beneath the surface. The ice is a time machine, waiting to be read. It rests in the dark, holding the answers to the planet's deep history, a frozen library that has been keeping its secrets for over 1 million winters. Before the ocean freezes into a solid sheet, it creates a field of floating lilies made of ice. This stage of sea ice formation is called pancake ice. It happens when small crystals of ice, known as fragile, accumulate on the rough waves and bump into each other. The constant collisions round off the edges and create raised rims, resulting in thousands of circular, flat discs that look remarkably like giant white pancakes or lily pads. They bob rhythmically in the swell, stretching to the horizon in a surreal, tessellated pattern. Eventually, as the temperature drops further, these pancakes freeze together to form a solid ice pack. It is a fleeting, artistic moment in the birth of the winter ice, a geometric dance of circles on the dark, churning water. The land beneath the ice is slowly rising, rebounding from a weight it has carried for eons. This process is called isostatic rebound. The ice sheet is so heavy that it has pushed the Earth's crust down into the mantle, much like a person sitting on a soft mattress. As the ice melts or shifts over thousands of years, the land slowly springs back up, sometimes rising by a fraction of an inch per year. This movement is incredibly slow, a geological yawn that takes millennia to complete. It means the continent is not a static stage, but a dynamic, moving entity that reacts to the burden it bears. The Earth remembers the weight, and in its slow, stony way, it is constantly adjusting its posture, rising to meet the sky as the load lightens. On very cold, calm nights, the lights of the research stations seem to shoot straight up into the sky. These are called light pillars, an optical illusion created by millions of flat, plate-like ice crystals floating horizontally in the air. These crystals act like tiny mirrors, reflecting the light from a source, whether it is the sun, the moon, or a station's floodlight, into a vertical column. It looks as though beams of energy are radiating from the ground, connecting the Earth to the heavens. It creates a scene of futuristic beauty, transforming a simple outpost into a city of light. It is a trick of the geometry of water, a visual echo. In the frozen air, light does not just travel, it hangs and shimmers, building cathedrals of luminescence out of the cold itself. The feathers of the emperor penguin are a marvel of biological engineering, denser than those of any other bird. To survive the crushing cold of the Antarctic winter, these birds are covered in a coat of feathers that packs about 100 feathers per square inch. They are arranged in a complex, overlapping pattern that seals out the wind and water entirely, trapping a layer of warm air against the skin. Additionally, the penguins can fluff their feathers to release heat or flatten them to lock it in. This coat is so effective that the outside of the penguin is often colder than the surrounding air, allowing snow to settle on their backs without melting. They are living thermos flasks, walking fortresses of warmth. Their survival is built upon this soft, dense armor, a barrier that keeps the freezing world at bay. In 1978, the silence of the continent was broken by the cry of a newborn baby. Emilio Palma was the first human ever known to be born in Antarctica, delivered at the Argentine Esperanza base. His birth was part of a deliberate effort by Argentina to strengthen its claim on the territory, but it also marked a symbolic moment for humanity. For the first time, a life began in the land of eternal ice, rather than just visiting it. Since then, a handful of other children have been born on the continent, known as the Antarcticans. They are a rare group of people whose origin story begins at the bottom of the world. It serves as a reminder that even in the most hostile environment, human life can find a way to begin, adding a heartbeat to the frozen stillness. A crate of whiskey, buried by a famous explorer, was returned to the world after a century on the ice. During the restoration of Ernest Shackleton's hut at Cape Royds. Conservationists discovered crates of McKinley's rare old Highland malt whiskey, hidden beneath the floorboards, frozen in the ice since 1907. The whiskey was carefully excavated and slowly thawed, revealing that the liquid was still intact. It was a time capsule of flavor, a taste of the Victorian era preserved by the finest refrigerator on Earth. The preservation speaks to the dry, stable cold of the hut, which acts as a sanctuary against time. It is a connection to the leisure and humanity of the explorers, a spirited secret kept safe by the ice long after the men who buried it had passed into history. The ground sometimes shakes not from tectonic plates, but from the ice itself cracking. These events are called cryoseisms, or icequakes. They occur when water in the ground or in a glacier freezes and expands rapidly, putting immense stress on the surrounding rock or ice until it snaps with a loud boom and a tremor. In the silence of the Antarctic night, these quakes can sound like thunder or cannon fire, startling anyone nearby. It is the sound of the landscape adjusting to the cold, a violent release of tension in a frozen world. Unlike earthquake tremors which come from deep below, these come from the surface, a shudder of the skin of the planet. It is a reminder that the ice is heavy and active, a powerful force that shapes the world with its own restless energy. The largest iceberg ever recorded was a floating island larger than the island of Jamaica. Iceberg. B-15 carved from the Ross Ice Shelf in March 2000, measuring about 183 miles, or 295 kilometers, long and 23 miles, or 37 kilometers wide. It contained enough fresh water to supply the entire United States for years. This massive slab of ice drifted for years, breaking into smaller pieces that were tracked by satellites as they moved slowly around the continent. Its sheer size altered ocean currents and blocked penguin colonies from reaching the sea, reshaping the local ecosystem for a time. It was a wandering giant, a white leviathan that commanded the ocean. It stood as a testament to the scale of the Antarctic ice, generating a monument that dwarfed the creations of humanity before melting back into the sea. Those who stay for the winter experience a profound psychological shift known as the winter over syndrome. When the last plane leaves in February, the crew is isolated for nearly 9 months, plunging into the eternal darkness of the polar night. The lack of sunlight, the sensory deprivation, and the extreme confinement can lead to a state of absent-mindedness, altered sleep patterns, and a unique, dreamy detachment from the world. It is a hibernation of the mind, where the boundaries of time blur. Yet, many describe it as a period of immense peace and clarity, a chance to disconnect from the noise of modern life. It is a journey inward, mirroring the barren landscape outside. In the dark, the mind adapts to the rhythm of the ice, finding a quiet equilibrium in the heart of the solitude. Antarctica serves as the silent, beating heart of the Earth's global climate. It is not just a passive block of ice, but the planet's greatest thermostat. The massive white surface reflects up to 80% of the sun's energy back into space, helping to keep the Earth cool. Its cold waters drive the circulation of the global oceans, pumping nutrients and oxygen to the tropics and beyond. The ice stores the history of our atmosphere and locks away enough water to reshape every coastline on the map. It is the great balancer, the heavy counterweight that keeps the systems of our world stable. As it sleeps in the south, it watches over the north, a majestic frozen guardian that connects every living thing to the silent power of the pole. And so, our journey through the silent and majestic world of Antarctica comes to a gentle close. We have drifted across the endless white plains where the wind sculpts the snow into frozen waves, and we have peered into the deep, blue heart of the glaciers that hold the memories of the ancient world. We have stood with the emperors in the long, dark winter and listened to the secret songs of the seals beneath the ice, witnessing a land that exists in a state of eternal patience. It is a place where the frantic pace of the human world fades into nothingness, replaced by the slow, rhythmic breathing of the tides and the quiet accumulation of the snow. The continent rests at the bottom of the world, a heavy white anchor that holds our history and our future in its cold embrace, watching over the planet with a stillness that has outlasted empires. As we leave these frozen shores, the image of the great white desert remains not as a place of desolation, but as a sanctuary of profound peace. The storms may rage on the surface, but deep within the ice, there is only silence, stability, and the slow passage of eons. It is a gentle reminder that even in the harshest conditions, life finds a way to endure, and that there is a deep beauty in the quiet spaces where humanity rarely treads. Let the coolness of this distant world settle over your mind, quieting your thoughts just as the winter quiets the sea. The ice sleeps, the ocean sleeps, and the stars wheel slowly overhead in their endless glittering circle, guarding the night. If you happen to still be awake, that's perfectly all right. You can simply lie back, let the music keep flowing in the background, and drift in and out of the story at your own pace. But if your eyes are heavy, let the stories of Antarctica and the gentle music carry you softly into rest. Sleep well. Good night.